Olá a todos, meus queridos amigos, como estão? Sou o Warithurger e hoje vou-vos falar sobre o templo, ou neste caso o Santuário de Endovelico, uma divindade muito conhecida da Idade do Ferro, pré-romana, aqui na Península Ibérica, especialmente nas áreas das antigas províncias da Lusitânia e Bética. Não se preocupem, este vídeo não será totalmente falado em português, mas achei que seria engraçado começar o vídeo de hoje a falar nesta língua, cujo léxico é tão complexo que acho que a maior parte das pessoas ainda não se apercebeu que isto é realmente a língua portuguesa e provavelmente acham que estou aqui a magicar uma maldição antiga para invocar as divindades do submundo, o que não é uma suposição totalmente errada, como iremos ver ao longo deste vídeo. Hello everyone, my dear friends. Better change to English now before you think I was concocting some sort of ancient curse. As most of you subscribed to this channel are used to listen to me in English and not in Portuguese. Well, I'm Ari Thurger, and as I was saying, today I'm going to talk about the Sanctuary of Endovelicus, a very famous pre-Roman Iron Age deity around these parts, in the Iberian Peninsula. So on this video today, I'm not just going to talk about the sanctuary itself. I think it's important to spare a moment of your time to talk a little bit about our underworld Lord and Savior in order to also understand the sanctuary itself and its location. Anyway, could I have also said all of this in Spanish? Yes, I could, but I didn't want to show off. So, my dear friends, let's get started, please. Vamos começar. So, who is the old boy Endovelicus, or Endovelico, and also known as Endoviliano? Endovelico is a Celtiberian deity of the Iron Age, venerated or worshipped in pre-Roman Lusitania. When we speak of Lusitania, we usually understand the Portuguese territory. However, we must be careful with this because this was a contemporary notion created at a time when many European countries were looking for their pre-Christian but also pre-Roman identity, cultural identity. In fact, Lusitania is understood as the western territory of the Iberian Peninsula, part of which was where the, let's say, Lusitanian people lived since the Neolithic period at least. After the Roman conquest, many territories were split and divided, and some were merged together. So most of these territories started to be designated as Hispania, a new Roman province, the Western Roman province, whose capital was Emerita Augusta, or Iulia Augusta Emerita, now Merida in Spain. It is true that most of the territory of the former Lusitania covers the vast majority of the present-day country of Portugal, but we must remember that the territories of the pre-Roman Iberian Peninsula did not have, obviously, the same borders as today, and the medieval kingdoms of Portugal and Spain were still far from being formed. Lusitania, already under Roman control, had its borders defined, and it is at that time that we have a better sense or a better notion of the territory, certainly quite modified and excluding some Celtic and Celtiberian tribes, and at the same time merging other territories. Lusitania then began to include approximately all of the current Portuguese territory south of the Douro River, plus the Spanish Extremadura and part of the province of Salamanca. It became a Roman province more or less in the year of 29 before the Common Era, until the Roman Empire started to crumble and the old provinces were progressively abandoned at the beginning of the 5th century of the Common Era. It is here in the ancient Lusitania that the cult of Endovelico exists, even today, still today, especially among neo-pagans, the cult of the god Endovelico, god of medicine and security, of a solar and Teutonic character. After the Roman invasion, his cult spread to the majority of the Roman Empire, ending up being equated and also replaced by Asclepius. I have already spoken a little bit about Asclepius before on another video, a hero and god of medicine in ancient Greek religion and mythology, and celebrated at the fourth day during the celebrations of the Eleusinian mysteries. Even though Endovelico was merged with Asclepius, his cult has always remained more popular in the Iberian Peninsula for obvious reasons, more specifically in the Roman provinces of Lusitania and Baetica as well. And as I said earlier, there is still an important cult to this underworld deity, not only among Celtic, Celtiberian and Iberian religious manifestations of reconstruction, religious character, right? But there is also a religion dedicated to this god, a religion that, let's say, focuses more on the animistic aspects of this deity, but also as a religious mysticism, focusing on the chthonic powers of this deity, the infernal powers as it is. Endovelicus or Endovelico, in fact there are other ways to pronounce and even write the name of this deity, because the Iberian Peninsula isn't just composed by people who either speak only Portuguese or only Spanish, but there are of course other dialects as well as other languages. Anyway, Endovelico was one of the Celtiberian gods of the early Iron Age. He was originally a chthonic god of health, prophecy, and the earth associated with vegetation and the afterlife. A god of infernal powers, a god of the underworld, but also of light, illumination, wisdom and knowledge. It's not easy to understand what the name of this god truly means, because we seem to have a junction of different languages in here. Well, the word termination cus in Endovelicus is definitely Latin, so the Iron Age deity, pre-Roman Iron Age deity, would be something between the lines of Handevel or Endobelis. Etymologically speaking, this name has Celtic, possibly Proto-Basque and Iberian roots, and his name probably originally meant something like the Black Lord or the Great Black One, in relation to his character as an underworld god, a god of the blackness of the earth. It's also important to refer that if we take a look at the part of the name Velicus, right, it comes from the Celtic viros, which means wolf. This deity was once indeed related to wolves, wolves being one of his animal companions, and in later periods after Christianization the wolf became a dog, sort of domesticated by Christianity. This is curious because there was another deity often characterized as being Endovelicus, which is the Celtiberian god Vilek or Vaelicu, who was a wolf god. However, I do not believe these are one and the same, even though of course there are a lot of similarities between the two, but there are also a lot of differences, and well, don't worry, someday I might talk about this wolf god of the Iberian Peninsula, Celtiberian wolf god. Still, a connection between Endovelico and wolves isn't unheard of. In fact, it wasn't just with Asclepius that Endovelico was equated or merged with, but also with the god Serapis, a god that is usually represented alongside a wolf or a dog companion or a wolf-like monster. Dogs and wolves are usually animal companions of underworld deities and deities related with death and the afterlife in the underworld. So, well, it perfectly fits into the character of Endovelico. As it was said before, Endovelico is a divinity related to healing, health and medicine. So due to its healing character, the incubation ritual was practiced in temples, sanctuaries, shrines, or any other sacred space or place consecrated to this deity. Incubation, in the religious sense, of course, is the practice of a person sleeping in a sacred place to obtain divine revelations through dreams or healing. As was said, Endovelico was also the god of prophecy, so through this rite of incubation, the sick, the infirm and the dying found the solution to their ailments, many ailments, through dreams that had to be interpreted by a priest, a specific priest. That is why there has also been several attempts to translate the name of Endovelico as the good, or the very good, or the very good one, or the good one, from the Celtic root of this name that would be somewhere between the lines of Endovel, but of course also the Dark One or the Great Black One, as previously said, precisely as a god of the underworld, and the wisdom and prophecy of the underworld his devotees could obtain by sleeping at his temple or sanctuary. By the ritual of incubation, of course. The latter meaning is what marks this deity to a chthonic character, in addition to the fact that he was also identified with the wild boar, an animal linked to the night, to the darkness of the night, and to death. The wild boar was also one of the sacred animals of Endovelico. The wild boar and the wolf, which with Christianization this deity became a saint actually, and his animal companions went from wild boar and wolf to pig and dog, which are in fact, let's say, the shape-shifting animal aspects of this deity, alongside with the rooster, which is the animal of dawn, the day, the sun, light and illumination, also an animal of the underworld, and to this day the animal representative of Portugal as the land of illumination, the animal rooster, right? In the areas dedicated to the worship of Endovelico, votive offerings in the form of wild boars have been found. In addition, this animal, normally related to the night and its darkness, but also to the underworld, is, as I said, identified with this god of chthonic and infernal character. In some inscriptions from the Roman period, already Roman period, the figure of the boar is joined by a sacred tree and a crown that reaffirms the funerary character of this divinity, of this god, as well as its relationship with forests and vegetations. That is probably why some people even identify this divinity as a kind of Iberian Cernunnos. However, the relationship with forests and vegetation is very common among Celtic peoples, Celtic cultures, since many spaces in forests, especially clearings or groves, were sacred places where specific gods inhabited, which makes caves in forests special natural sanctuaries dedicated to Endovelicus. Now let's speak a little bit about the sanctuary itself. The sanctuary was possibly built during the 1st century of the Common Era, so already during Roman rule, to a certain extent, of course, late Iron Age, classical period. However, the divinity would already be worshipped here before the construction of the sanctuary, of the Roman sanctuary. Most likely the sanctuary was actually built on some older building, a pre-Latin sanctuary that was later subjected to a process of Christianization in the 5th century of the Common Era. Many of the pre-Roman and prehistoric native cults to deities were made in high areas, sacred hills and mountains, and that is why we have the sanctuary on an elevated area somewhere around here with a total visual dominance of the surrounding landscape. Initially, it was thought that an Iron Age settlement would also be here, which, well, would not be that strange or surprising, but the consecutive excavations, archaeological excavations that have been made so far seem increasingly to refute this initial idea, and it seems to have been only a place of worship, a place of cult, specifically taking people on religious pilgrimages to this place to come to worship the divinity and even sleep in this sacred space in search of healing and prophetic knowledge, which is still done today actually in the neo-pagan mystical cults to this deity, of course. The sanctuary of Endovelico is surrounded by the meandering waters of the Lucifecit River. Well, Lucifecit is a very suggestive name that can be indeed related to the nature of the indigenous Lusitanian god known as Endovelico. For the native peoples of this area, the temples and sanctuaries and other sacred places were found in nature itself and not in buildings erected by a human hand. Unlike the Roman sanctuary of a later period, of course, the sacred space in here must have been quite the primitive sanctuary of Endovelico, or dedicated to Endovelico. The original Lusitanian sanctuary may not have been much to look at. Not in a derogatory sense, mind you. The sacred sites before the construction of temples or sanctuaries were found in nature itself, as I said, and not in constructions by human hands. Places were sacred not because humanity built a dwelling for the divine, but because in an animistic worldview, the place itself would be inhabited by an entity, and by the consecutive contact with the place and with its entity, a cult develops, and from a prolonged cult to the entity of the place, the entity then becomes a deity, is elevated to the quality of deity. So there is usually a space that is built, a building that is erected, where both the human being and the local entity could live and be in contact with each other. For this reason, the river or the stream has an important role in the cult, as it serves as a symbolic border between the domains of the human being and the domains of the local entity. The passage or fording the river and a sacred bath in it would serve as a sacred passage of the border between the physical world and the world of the divine, and the elevated place where the divinity lives is then seen as another world completely, perhaps even understood as the realm where the entity inhabits, a passage to the underworld itself that is precisely the domains or the realm of Endovelico. And the incubation rite leads the devotee to enter the realms of the deity. There is no doubt that this stream or this river runs through sacred lands. The stream is called Lucifecit, as I said, a name given in a later period. Lucifecit may derive from both Latin and Arabic, actually, peoples who came to occupy these spaces in later periods. If we take into account the Arab dialects of medieval times in this part of the world, the name Lucifecit may be derived from the Arabic al-Osif, which means black, deep black or deep dark. Taking into account Latin prior to the arrival of the Arabs, of course, the name may derive from lux fero, bearer of light, that is, Lucifer. This name only has a negative connotation at a certain point in history after the Christian religious developments, of course. Both the dark or black aspect as well as the idea of light bearer or bringer of light fit into the characteristics of the native deity of this place, here worshipped in pre-Roman times, Endovelico, right? The god of the underworld, of the darkness of the earth, bearer of light, of illumination, knowledge and prophetic dreams. A revealer of wisdom, a light in the darkest places of the world and of the mind. In fact, Lucifer was the Latin translation made to describe Venus, the morning star, bearer of light, considered a star in antiquity, seen with the naked eye in the night sky. Hence it was called Lux Fero, later on becoming Lucis Ferre, and finally becoming Lucifer, the herald of dawn, giving its illumination just before the dawn. Hence it was also known as a deity of knowledge, protection, hope. The Church, which for centuries tried to demonize any glimpse of pagan worship, where Venus was obviously included, tried to associate the term Venus with Satan, the father of nature's demons, creating a completely different connotation, as you might imagine. Therefore, the name of this stream, Lucifecit, is very curious. Waters that flow through sacred hills, where the physical and symbolic references to pagan deities are absolutely everywhere. The choice of this name may have served the purpose of indeed demonizing an area that the Church saw as a threat, a direct threat to the cult of its unique and only God, thus becoming a place of fear and to be avoided, as it was considered a place of pagan worship that directly threatened the supremacy of the new religion, which is Christianity. Pagan cults are not easily erased and therefore it is certain that local populations continue to worship the local deity even after the Christianization of the place. In a way, this kind of reminds me of how the famous Great Sphinx of Giza lost its nose, precisely because even after the Islamization of the place, farmers continued to worship the Great Sphinx, not only to continue to have fertility in agriculture, in the soils, but also for the control of the waters from the part of the Sphinx itself. Until the Sphinx's nose was eventually purposely broken as a way of killing the entity that inhabited it. Even though it was an act provoked by an Islamist radical in the 14th century, this is an act typically of an animistic mentality, or at the very least in accordance to the local animistic system of belief that endured. This event having been real or not, there are some references to it. Well, many animist cultures display these acts against representations of supernatural entities, purposely breaking arms of representations of divinities and other entities in order to not allow or not receive or give offerings or blessings from the part of the entity to the community, or to cause damage in the eyes so that the entity ceases to see, or actually destroy noses and mouths so that the entities represented in objects or statues cease to breathe and thus die. Or in other words, this act does not allow the spirit of the entity to inhabit an object made to represent it, and hence it ceases to exist in that object, in that representation, failing to provide power and blessings to the community, the human community. So here in the case of Endovelico and this river or this stream, it seems to follow the same line of thought, changing the name of the river to provoke fear in the local population in order to end the pagan cult that was still being performed by the local population. Now, returning to the sanctuary, at the top of the sanctuary we find some stairs carved on stone leading to an altar. Perhaps one of the most interesting architectural aspects of this context is a pentagonal shaped well on the floor of the sanctuary with cavities carved into the stone around the walls of this well or this pit. And this well would have had a sacrificial function, which is quite common actually in sanctuaries to other deities spread all across the territories of the Iberian Peninsula, especially in the western and northern areas. However, given the oracular and initiation characteristics of Endovelico, this well or this pit can actually be the chamber for the incubation rite. This ritual would have consisted of spending the night in the sanctuary and receiving prophetic dreams or the appearance in dreams of Endovelico himself. In fact, there are many testimonies of people who spent the night here and describe very strange dreams where the appearance of a black figure prevails, where strange rituals are visualized or can be visualized, and where the presence of wild boars and wolves can even be felt and seen like dancing shadows, which, as previously said, are animals associated with Endovelico, of course. There are other places and shrines and sanctuaries and other temples dedicated to the worship of this deity of Endovelico. He was quite famous in the Iron Age. However, this one in particular seems to highlight the most primordial nature of this Lusitanian god. The chthonic aspect is more present in here. The characteristics of this underworld god, who is the very bridge between this world and the other, seem to be more present in here. In here, the most primordial aspects of this deity certainly gives us a very different perspective on pagan cults. There is always, of course, a tendency to romanticize these subjects, and in fact, in here, in this place, it is difficult to see beyond the romantic aspects of the landscape. However, in the memories here engraved on the stones and in the whispers of the wind that flows over the river, we feel a strong and primordial presence that stands out over everything else. Alright, my dear friends, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful. I know this is not the usual subject I often place in this channel, but I really hope you have enjoyed it, and well, let me know in the comments below. Let me know all of your critics and feedback in general, so I may once in a while visit these places and in search of ancient Celtiberian and Iberian gods, mostly of the Neolithic, Bronze Age, Iron Age, etc. Anyway, I want to thank my patrons, a very special thanks to my patrons, without whom this would not be possible. As you might imagine, some resources have to be spent, not just to come in here, but also actual resources, academic sources. I had to borrow and to buy as well, and I had to spend a few resources, and this would not be possible without the help of my patrons, of course. So thank you very much, my dear friends and patrons, and obviously very special thanks to all of you who subscribe to this channel and give it a like and share my videos, which is quite useful, and it helps this channel to grow, and it helps this community to grow. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Once again, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful. And as always, tack för idag. Thanks for today. Obrigado por hoje. Gracias por hoy. Hello, my dear friends. I'm sorry if you are watching this at the beginning of the video. This is a sort of disclaimer. I was meant to find the Sanctuary of Endovelicus, but I could not actually find it. I mean, it's not that I am usually good, but I'm sort of not that bad when it comes to archaeological prospection. I usually find things. But this time I've been all day in this, since 8 o'clock in the morning. It's about 5 p.m. in the afternoon, obviously. And I couldn't find the sanctuary. I've been walking through hills, forests, mountains, even fields, farmed fields. I've found a couple of goats, and for miles in all directions, and as far as the eye could see, there's nothing. There's no population. There's nothing saying anything. There's the only living thing I found were a few bugs and goats. So my apologies. I could not actually find the sanctuary. I've been very close to it. I was looking at it at some point on an hill, really far from here. So I tried to reach it. I've walked in circles all around the hill. I found myself in the forest. I lost my way a couple of times. It happens sometimes. I found the stream again, the river, which you shall see in this video. Lucifacite stream or river. But I could not actually reach the sanctuary. It's impregnable. It stands on a high hill with very razor sharp rocks, and it's very steep, and there's also forests and valleys down there. So my apologies, but the video shall continue. I shall speak about the sanctuary anyway, because I know it from pictures, and when I was also making the research, I was at the National Library of Archaeology, and the archaeological reports have a lot of details about the sanctuary, so I know everything about the sanctuary and how it looks. I have even found it in the distance, but I could not actually reach it right there at the entrance of it, because it's just not possible. I took a day off to do this, but I cannot afford another day off. But at least you shall have a video anyway about about the sanctuary and about the river, which is an important landscape feature for the cult of Endovelicus. So, my dear friends, and I'm sorry for speaking like this, but I'm extremely tired, and it's getting hard to think after so many hours at this. Anyway, let's start our today's video. Well, I am defeated. I look defeated. But at least it wasn't totally for nothing. I have actually found this route right here. I'm going to show you in more detail on another picture. Well, these routes are actually not easy to find, so it was a very fortunate finding. I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for, but it gave me inspiration actually to record the video about talismans and the creation of talismans in an animistic perception. I might do a video about that in the future. I might use this route. I'm not sure, because I'm really not sure what I'm going to do with it, but since it's very rare to find one of these right here, especially with this configuration, well, it gave me some ideas. And let's see what I shall do in the near future. At least thinking about that gives me hope to carry on. I've walked so much today, for hours, and I'm very, very far from any glimpse of civilization, so I really need to keep my wits about me and drink water. Goodbye, my dear friends, this is the end. No, seriously, if you are watching this, it's because I made it, and I have actually edited. So, there's really something going on inside my brain right now. Well, you get it. I've made it if you are watching this video. Nothing more to say. I just want to say that I have not actually given up. I was about to, but after 9 hours I finally found the Sanctuary of Endovelicus. Guys, I'm really tired, and look at my face. I've burnt my skin. I'm all swollen. Anyway, I want to thank you. Even though you don't know it, you have given me, I don't know, motivation to continue, because I know many of you like to see these things, and you want to know about pagan gods and of antiquity, and even those of you have already asked me before to cover some Lusitanian, Iberian, Celtiberian deities, so that gave me motivation to continue, and here I am finally after almost 10 hours actually. I've finally found the old man, so thank you so much for your support, and thanks to me and my stupidity as well. And obviously I wanted to meet the old man, a sort of pilgrimage. And here I am. Good gods, I can't even feel my face. Anyway, if you are watching this, I have survived, so no harm done. See you on the next video. Goodbye and thank you. Tack för idag. Thanks for today. Obrigado por hoje. Gracias por hoje. And so on and so forth. Thank you.